I locked my fresh Ironman to the Edgeville Monastery, and I can't leave until I do everything inside. How hard could it be? Hello and welcome to the Monastery. Let me show you around. The ground floor is home to 5 monks, 4 of which I can fight for combat training. The second floor also has a lot of good upgrades for the account, but I need to get 31 prayer to access them. And to do that, I need to start training my combat stats. At level 1 stats and no weapons, I was far too weak to kill anything, so I spent some time training my attack levels on the monks. When my health got low, I ran away to talk to the abbot in the corner, who can heal you for a percentage of your total HP. The first levels were very, very slow. It was a few hundred experience per hour, and my hit chance was a lot lower than you might expect. Even though I had a max hit of 1, I still had a 50% chance of hitting a 0. After a few hours of punching and kicking, I finally raised my max hit to 2. With a max hit of 2, my DPS exploded to 0.29, which was enough to potentially defeat a monk. Soon I acquired my first bones on the account, earning me 4.5 prayer experience and taking my first step to accessing the second floor of the monastery and eventually getting 99 prayer. After gaining some quick prayer levels, I knew what I needed to do next. Punching and kicking were enough for a while, but my DPS would greatly increase if I could get my hands on a decent weapon. The monastery chunk contains 6 NPCs, each of which fulfills a different role for my account. Monks are the easiest and most consistent to kill, only drop bones, and can also heal me. Imps drop fiendish ashes, which are worth more than 2 monks per kill, but they also run away and they don't spawn in a group. Dwarves drop quite a few useful items. The iron battle axe is the best flinching weapon I can get my hands on without killing black knights. Nature and chaos runes will be useful for magic training in the future, and their coin drops make them my best option to get enough coins to buy the prayer cape. Ice fiends are garbage mobs with a drop table that looks like someone forgot to finish it. They also attack with magic-based attacks, which means they hit a lot more often on someone with no magic levels like me, and they don't even drop fiendish ashes. If they were ever updated to drop fiendish ashes, they would probably be the primary way for me to train prayer, but we'll talk more about that later. Black Knights drop multiple best-in-slot upgrades for this chunk: the Iron Full Helm, an Iron Sword, and a Steel Mace. The Steel Mace is the strongest weapon I can get in the chunk, except for the rare drop table, which I can only access from the Mystery Box random event reward. There is a single man just outside my chunk who can wander in. He's got some unique rune drops I can use to train magic, and he drops an Iron Dagger, which is my best-in-slot magic weapon for the chunk. So every mob in my chunk has its purpose, not you. But in order to work my way to killing Black Knights, I was going to need a lot more levels and a better weapon. I started out by flinching some dwarves, hoping to get a battle axe. I gathered some cabbages north of the monastery to use as food. Dwarves also drop bronze pickaxes, which are such a bad weapon they lower your DPS compared to punching things because of their slow attack speed. After a few dwarves, I got 10 coins, the first of many on the account. You might have noticed that I have some rubies in my inventory from a random event. I haven't deposited these in the bank yet because I don't have access to a bank at all. There's still a single way for me to get my items into a bank, but I can't get them back out. The Gravedigger random event actually has a bank deposit box inside, so every time I get that random event, I can clear my inventory a little bit. While this doesn't really matter for small things like rubies, it's going to be very useful for depositing random event outfits, so I can get experience lamps for more random events, which will greatly speed up Lamping Hunter to level 27 to catch implings. After killing a few more dwarves, I got my first armor on the account, a bronze medhelm. These 2 crushed defense points will make a huge difference in how I feel about how much damage I am taking. After many more kills, I gained some more prayer levels and finally got the Iron Battle Axe. This raised my max hit to 3 and seemed like a great opportunity to try out flinching a Black Knight. Unfortunately, my stats were so low I wasn't even sure I could kill a Black Knight faster than its hit points regenerate. So I ran back to monks to train up my stats some more. After gaining another 2 max hits and increasing my accuracy by 25%, I returned to take down my first Black Knight. It took around 10 minutes, and all I got was 12 coins. It was clear I needed to train my stats further before I could farm these knights in a reasonable fashion. While I was training on monks, I killed a stray imp for my best-in-slot mage helm for the chunk. After getting yet another experience lamp, I decided to finally get membership on the account and start Lamping Hunter. Shortly after, I got the first beginner clue on the account. There is a single beginner clue step in my chunk, but unfortunately I can't do it without a spade, so beginner clues are useless until I unlock more chunks. I traded over a Phoenix crossbow from an alternate account. Because it's necessary for the Shield of Arav quest, it's one of the few items that's tradable to Ironman accounts. I recognize this is a bit of a controversial thing for one chunk accounts. For my purposes, all this allows is luring the man who spawns outside my chunk into my chunk. There's another item later that has a similar property that we'll talk about. A few hours later, I opened my very first mystery box, which has a 1 in 15 chance of giving me a mithril scimitar, as well as a very slim chance of giving me a number of much better weapons from the rare drop table. Any of these items will cut the grind to 99 strength by dozens or hundreds of hours, so it's worth doing every Quizmaster random event I can. I wasn't lucky this time. Having trained to 40 attack and strength, I was ready to go back trying my luck at Black Knights again. A genie popped up while I was still recording to celebrate my new level. After 19 more hours on the account, I had managed to get 20 prayer, almost halfway to reaching the second floor of the monastery. While training, I killed an imp that was wandering the halls of the monastery and got an empty bucket. This was huge for the account. With an empty bucket, I could fill it with water from the fountains in the courtyard, and then drop it on the ground, because it was actually totally useless. I killed a stray imp wandering between the mountain and the monastery, and it dropped shears. Few people know this, but there are actually 3 shearable sheep just north of the monastery. With these shears, I could finally get wool on the account, which is also totally useless. After many more levels, I now had around a 40% chance of hitting Black Knights, so I headed back, determined to get a real weapon on the account. And I quickly gave up yet again and returned to training my stats. I gained a few levels, and then, while killing the man, I finally got a weapon, the Iron Dagger. It's a small upgrade, but it did give me an immediate extra max hit on the aggressive attack style. It's also a required item for my chunk since it's the best in slot magic weapon. I was starting to run out of excuses for not killing Black Knights, so after a few more combat levels, I returned to flinching them in the hopes of acquiring the 3 upgrades from their drop table: an iron sword, an iron full helm, and the steel mace. The kills were slow, and I wasn't getting lucky with an early mace or a sword drop. And at one point, I had such a terrible streak of accuracy luck that I wanted to share. 17 zeros in a row. Shortly after this, I got my first Gravedigger random event, and I was able to deposit some items that are of no value to the account. Finally, after 37 hours of grinding, I had managed to reach 31 prayer. I traveled up to the second floor to grab my new best in slot prayer armor and restore my prayer points for the first time on the account. And that makes it about time to address the elephant in the room. If it took me 27 hours to gain 15,000 prayer experience, how can I possibly expect to complete this chunk in a reasonable amount of time? Well, I have 3 routes to achieve 99 prayer. Route 1, I can kill dwarves relatively quickly. With a good amount of focus, I've been hitting around 950 experience an hour, but that number will go up slightly with higher strength levels and other eventual upgrades from mystery boxes and the hunter grind. At best, I'm looking at a 12 to 14,000 hour grind, and with how much I play per day, this will take me somewhere between 10 and 20 years. Route 2. Ice Fiends are accessible in my chunk, but they don't drop Fiendish Ashes. I believe this is an oversight that Jagex should fix at some point in the future. This would greatly reduce the number of kills required for me to get 99 prayers, since each Ice Fiend is worth 2 1/5 dwarves per kill, and there are more Ice Fiends near the same location, so there would be less downtime between kills. If we conservatively assume this is just double the rate, that's a 6 to 7,000 hour grind, which will take me between 5 and 10 years. And Route 3. I mentioned earlier that the Phoenix crossbow isn't the only item I can trade over to an Ironman account. Burnt Joker Bones are one other item. If you burn Joker Bones like a fire, the remains that appear on the ground do not have an owner. I could buy Joker Bones on my main and burn them over to my One Chunk account. But this raises a question of its own, which is whether or not that's in the spirit of the One Chunk game mode. I didn't know about this method when I started the account, but instead I found out about it from a soup video that came out a few months after I was already this far into the account. Is the One Chunk account all about discovery and forging your own way to meet goals, or is it more about surviving under self-imposed restrictions and persevering despite those restrictions? I'm not fully decided on which of these routes is the most reasonable. Regardless, I still need to get 99 strength first, so I have a lot of time to think over what the best possible action is. What do you think? Should I push hard on Route 1? Spam JMods on Reddit to make Route 2 a possibility? Or should I just start stockpiling Joker bones on my main? As an interesting side note, after I discovered the Joker bones method, I wanted to try it out for myself. I brought some bones over to the monastery and was shocked to find that you can't actually light fires in the monastery, or on Ice Mountain, or anywhere in my chunk. I thought that this maybe meant that I'm unable to choose Route 3 anyways, but it turns out there's still one single place I can burn Joker bones, the second floor of the monastery. And with that, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.